Hey, stories of the Soul fam. We've got a swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in and tell us what cities are. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the bridal suite windows as Celeste adjusted her grandmother's pearl necklace one final time. Her wedding dress, a masterpiece of ivory silk and delicate lace, flowed around her like a cloud. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. After 3 years with Derek, she was finally going to become Mrs. Peterson. "You look absolutely radiant," her mother whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "Derek is the luckiest man alive." Celeste smiled, though something felt different today. Derek had been distant lately, always busy with work calls and mysterious meetings, but she pushed those worries aside. Wedding nerves were normal, right? "I need to check on the flowers one more time," Celeste said, gathering her skirts carefully. The ceremony would begin in just 2 hours, and she wanted everything to be perfect. As she walked down the hotel corridor toward the bridal preparation room, she heard familiar voices coming from inside. Her heart lightened, thinking Derek had come to see the final arrangements, even though it was bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the ceremony. "Derek, we shouldn't be doing this here," a woman's voice said breathlessly. Celeste froze. That voice belonged to Victoria, her maid of honor and best friend since college. "The wedding is in 2 hours, Derek's voice replied, rough with desire. "This might be our last chance to be alone like this. But Celeste is just down the hall getting ready. She finds out about us. ... Double quotes. She won't. After today, everything changes. But that doesn't mean what we have has to end." Celeste's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. Her legs felt weak as the reality crashed over her. Derek and Victoria, her future husband, and her best friend. How long had this been going on? With trembling fingers, she pushed the door open just a crack. What she saw shattered her heart into a million pieces. Derek had Victoria pressed against the wall, her bridesmaid dress hiked up, his hands tangled in her hair. They were kissing with a passion that Celeste realized she had never experienced with Derek herself. "I love you, Victoria," Derek whispered against her lips.
"Ross,
"I should have called off this wedding months ago." "Then why didn't you?" Victoria asked, her voice barely audible. "Her family has already paid for everything. My business needs her father's connections. But after we're married, we can figure out how to be together without all the complications." Celeste stumbled backward, her hand pressed firmly against her mouth to keep from crying out. The beautiful wedding dress that had made her feel like a princess now felt like a costume in a cruel play. She turned and ran, her heels clicking frantically against the marble floor. She burst through the hotel's back exit into the garden, where white roses and baby's breath had been arranged for the perfect photo backdrop. Guests would be arriving soon, expecting to witness a fairy tale. Instead, they would find only lies and betrayal. Celeste collapsed onto a stone bench hidden behind a cluster of flowering bushes, finally letting the tears fall. Her carefully applied makeup ran in dark streams down her cheeks, but she didn't care. How could she face everyone? How could she walk down that aisle knowing what she knew? The sound of footsteps on gravel made her look up through her tears. A man approached slowly, his hands in the pockets of an elegant charcoal gray suit. He was tall, with dark hair and kind eyes that seemed to hold their own sadness. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just looking for a quiet place to make a phone call. But I can see you need the space more than I do." "No, it's okay." Celeste managed through her sobs. "I should probably go back inside anyway. I have a wedding to cancel." The stranger's expression softened with understanding. "Ah, one of those mornings? You could say that." Celeste wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, probably smearing her makeup even more. "I just discovered is in love with my maid of honor. They're planning to continue their affair after we're married. That's awful. I'm so sorry." He hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. "I know we don't know each other, but would you like to talk about it? Sometimes it helps to tell a stranger." Something about his voice, warm and genuinely caring, made Celeste want to trust him. "I'm Celeste," Nathan, he replied with a small smile. "And for what it's worth, any man who would betray you on your wedding day is an absolute fool." "You don't even know me," Celeste said, but she felt a tiny spark of warmth in her chest. "I know you have kind eyes even when they're filled with tears. I know you chose a dress that makes you look like you stepped out of a fairy tale. And I know that you deserve so much better than what you're going through right now." Fresh tears spilled down Celeste's cheeks, but these felt different somehow, less bitter. "Thank you for saying that. Keep wondering what I did wrong, what I could have done differently." "Nothing," Nathan said firmly. "This isn't about you at all. This is about two people who lack the courage and decency to be honest about their feelings." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the distant sounds of wedding preparations. Celeste studied Nathan's profile. There was something familiar about the sadness in his eyes. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Of course. You seem like you understand heartbreak pretty well." "Personal experience?" Nathan's smile was rueful. 3 months ago, I was supposed to be getting married myself. I found out I had been having an affair with my business partner for over a year. Oh God, Nathan, I'm so sorry. Thank you. It gets easier, I promise. The initial shock and pain fade, and you start to realize that you dodged a bullet. Better to find out now than after years of marriage. Is that why you're here? At someone else's wedding? My cousin's wedding, actually. Though I was dreading it. Being around all that happiness and celebration, when I'm still picking up the pieces of my own life? He looked at her with gentle eyes. But I'm glad I came. Meeting you has reminded me that I am not the only one dealing with this kind of pain. Celeste felt an unexpected connection to this stranger who had found her at her lowest moment. What am I supposed to do now? There are 200 people in that hotel expecting a wedding. My parents have spent a fortune. What do you want to do? Nathan asked. Run away and never look back, Celeste admitted. But that's not very mature, is it?
Ow.
Sometimes running away is exactly the right thing to do. Sometimes it's the only way to save yourself. But the guests, the money, the embarrassment, will all be forgotten in time. But if you go through with this wedding knowing what you know, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Celeste knew he was right. She looked down at her engagement ring, a modest diamond that Derek had chosen, without consulting her preferences. She slipped it off her finger and held it up to catch the sunlight. You know what the worst part is? She said. I don't think I ever really loved him, not the way you're supposed to love the person you marry. I was just so caught up in the idea of being married, of having that perfect wedding, that perfect life. That doesn't make this hurt any less, Nathan said kindly. No, but it makes it easier to imagine walking away. She stood up, suddenly feeling lighter despite the circumstances. I need to go tell my parents. And Derek. And somehow explain to 200 people why there won't be a wedding today. Nathan stood as well. That takes incredible courage. I don't feel very courageous right now. I feel terrified. The two often go hand in hand. As they walked back toward the hotel, Celeste felt grateful for this unexpected encounter. Nathan's presence had given her the strength she needed to face what came next. Nathan, she said as they reached the door, would you do me a favor? Anything? When I come back out here in a few minutes, probably crying again and definitely needing to escape, would you dance with me? There's going to be a lot of beautiful music going to waste, and I'd hate for this dress to go completely unused. Nathan's smile was the first genuinely happy expression she'd seen from him. It would be my honor, Celeste, even if I'd step on your feet, especially then. As Celeste walked back into the hotel to face the most difficult conversation of her life, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel on this terrible, wonderful day. Hope, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something beautiful rising from the ashes of something that was never meant to be. The fairy tale wasn't ending the way she had planned. But perhaps it was just beginning in a way she never could have imagined. 2 hours later, Celeste emerged from the hotel looking like she had survived a hurricane. Her carefully styled hair had come loose from its pins, her makeup was completely gone. And there were wrinkles in her beautiful dress from where her mother had gripped her in a tearful embrace. But her eyes, though red-rimmed, held a clarity that hadn't been there that morning. Nathan was waiting exactly where she had left him, leaning against the stone bench in the garden. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, somehow managing to look both elegant and approachable. How did it go? He asked gently. Celeste let out a long, shaky breath, about as well as you'd expect. Derek tried to deny everything at first, then got angry when I wouldn't listen to his excuses. Victoria just kept crying and saying she never meant for me to find out this way, and your parents. My mother went through about 6 different emotions in 5 minutes. Shock, anger, embarrassment, then finally relief when she realized I was making the right choice. My father wanted to punch Derek, which was actually kind of sweet. Celeste managed a small laugh. They're handling the guests right now. Apparently the hotel is letting people stay for the reception anyway, since everything was already paid for. That's generous of them. My father can be very persuasive when he's angry. She looked around the garden, where the late afternoon sun was casting everything in a golden glow. So here I am. Technically still a bride, but definitely not married. Nathan stepped closer, his expression serious but warm. I have a confession to make, Celeste. Her heart skipped a beat. Oh no. Please don't tell me you're married or engaged or something. I don't think I can handle any more revelations today. No, nothing like that, Nathan said quickly, then smiled. Though I appreciate your honesty about what you can and can't handle right now. No, my confession is much simpler. Lied about being here for my cousin's wedding. Celeste blinked in surprise. What do you mean? I was driving by and saw all the wedding preparations. I've been working up the courage for weeks to attend social events again. And I thought maybe if I just observed someone else's happiness from a distance, it might help me remember that good things still happen in the world. He ran a hand through his hair, looking slightly embarrassed. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot trying to decide whether to go in when I saw you run outside. So you followed a strange, crying woman into a garden, and you put it like that? It sounds pretty questionable, Nathan admitted. But something about you called to me. Maybe because I recognized that particular kind of pain. Celeste studied his face, seeing nothing but sincerity there. I'm glad you did. I don't know what I would have done without someone to talk to. You would have been fine, Nathan said confidently. You're stronger than you think. But I'm glad I could be here anyway. The sound of music drifted from the hotel ballroom, a slow, romantic melody that made Celeste's chest ache with longing for what might have been. That was supposed to be our first dance song, she said quietly. Derek picked it. I always thought it was too slow, but he said it was classic. What song would you have chosen? Nathan asked. Something with more life to it, more joy, something that makes you want to move, not just sway in place. As if summoned by her words, the music changed to something more upbeat, a song with strings and piano that seemed to sparkle in the air around them. Nathan extended his hand to her with a slight bow. I believe you requested a dance, Miss Celeste. She laughed, the sound surprising her with its genuineness. I'm still in my wedding dress. People might talk. Let them talk. You look beautiful, and this dress deserves to dance. Celeste placed her hand in his, and he led her to a small clearing among the rose bushes, where the grass had been worn smooth by countless garden parties. The music wrapped around them like silk as Nathan pulled her into a traditional dance hold. But there was nothing traditional about the way it felt. Unlike Derek, who had always made dancing feel like an obligation, Nathan moved with natural rhythm and confidence. He led her through simple steps that gradually became more complex as she relaxed into his arms. When she stumbled slightly on a turn, he steadied her with gentle strength, never making her feel clumsy or embarrassed. You're a beautiful dancer, he said, as they swayed together during a slower bridge in the music. So are you. Derek always said I had 2 left feet. Derek was clearly blind, as well as unfaithful. Celeste laughed again, feeling lighter with each passing moment. Tell me something about yourself, Nathan. Something real. What would you like to know? Anything, everything. I feel like I've been living in a fantasy for so long. I've forgotten what real conversations feel like. Nathan spun her out and back into his arms before answering. I'm a landscape architect. I design gardens and parks, places where people can find peace and beauty in the middle of chaos. That explains why you seem so comfortable here among all these flowers. I actually helped design this garden about 5 years ago. The hotel owner wanted something that would photograph beautifully for weddings, but also provide quiet spaces for reflection. Celeste looked around with new eyes, noticing the thoughtful way the paths curved and how the different flowers had been chosen to bloom in succession throughout the seasons. You have real talent. Thank you. What about you? When you're not planning weddings that don't happen, what do you do? I'm a children's librarian. I spend my days reading stories to kids and helping them discover new worlds through books. That's wonderful. You must have incredible patience and creativity. I love it. There is something magical about watching a child's face light up when they connect with a story. She paused, then added more quietly, Derek always said it wasn't a real career. That I should do something more ambitious once we were married. Nathan stopped dancing abruptly, his hands tightening protectively on her waist. Celeste, please tell me, you know how wrong he was about that. The intensity in his voice surprised her. I guess I'd started to believe him a little bit. Listen to me. What you do matters enormously. You're shaping young minds, fostering imagination, creating safe spaces for children to learn and grow. That's not just a real career, it's a calling. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve you. Tears pricked at Celeste's eyes again, but these were different. These felt like healing. Thank you for saying that. I'm not just saying it. I mean every word. The music shifted again, becoming something slower and more intimate. Other couples might have pulled apart, but Nathan and Celeste seemed to drift closer together naturally. She could smell his cologne, something warm and woodsy that reminded her of autumn evenings and fireplace smoke. "Nathan," she said softly, "can I ask you something that might be too personal? After the day we've both had, I think we're past worrying about too personal. What happened with your... You said she had an affair, but there's something else, isn't there?" Nathan's expression grew distant, but he didn't stop dancing. Her name was Jennifer. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 1. I thought we were happy, but apparently I was the only one who felt that way. The worst part wasn't even the affair itself. It was realizing that I'd been so focused on building what I thought was our future that I'd completely missed how miserable she was. That doesn't make it your fault. No, but it made me question everything I thought I knew about love and relationships. How could I have been so wrong about someone I lived with? Someone I planned to spend my life with? Celeste understood that feeling completely. "What did you do after you found out?" "I threw myself into work, took on project after project, traveled constantly, anything to avoid thinking about it. But eventually you realize you can't run from your feelings forever. Is that what today was about? It's trying to face normal life again?" Something like that. Though I have to say, this isn't exactly how I imagined it would go. Better or worse. Nathan's smile was soft and genuine. Much, much better. Even under the circumstances. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they continued to dance among the roses. Other guests had begun to wander into the garden, drawn by the music and the romantic setting. Some looked curious about the bride dancing with a stranger, but most seemed to understand that something beautiful was happening and chose not to intrude. "Celeste," Nathan said, as the current song ended, "I know this might seem crazy given how we met, but would you like to have dinner with me sometime this week? Somewhere that doesn't involve wedding decorations or formal wear?" "Are you asking me on a date?" she asked, surprised by how the idea made her pulse quicken. "I'm asking if you'd like to spend more time getting to know each other outside of crisis mode, and call it whatever feels comfortable to you." Celeste looked into his eyes and saw something she'd never seen in Derek's. Genuine interest in who she was as a person, not just what role she could play in his life. "I'd like that very much," she said, "but I should probably warn you that I'm going to be dealing with a lot of aftermath from today. Returning gifts, canceling honeymoon reservations, figuring out what comes next. I'd be happy to help with any of that if you want the company. I'm pretty good at practical tasks, and I have experience with post-relationship logistics. You don't mind that I'm basically starting my life over at 28, Celeste? I'm 31 and doing exactly the same thing. If anything, I think we might be able to help each other figure it out." As if on cue, the music swelled into something triumphant and hopeful. Nathan lifted Celeste's hand and spun her out in a wide circle, her dress flaring around her like flower petals. When she spun back to him, she was laughing with pure joy. "You know what?" she said, slightly breathless. "I think this might be the best non-wedding I've ever had." "Why? Does that mean you'll dance with me again next Saturday? Maybe somewhere with less formal attire and better lighting for dinner conversation?" "It's a date," Celeste said, and meant it. 6 months later, they would have their own wedding in this same garden, surrounded by friends who understood that the best love stories often begin with the ending of something that was never quite right. But for now, they danced until the stars came out. Two people who had found exactly what they needed in each other's arms at exactly the right moment. Sometimes the fairy tale doesn't go according to plan. Sometimes it becomes something even better.